listening to Her Profit Era, the podcast for founders who want a business that actually works. A business that's profitable, predictable, and pays them well. I am Cindy Kumar, a CPA, a fractional CFO from Abbotsford, BC, Canada. I'm the person founders call when they're tired of high revenue months with no money left over. I started this podcast because too many founders were chasing sales while their margins, cash flow, and bank accounts told a completely different story. I believe profit and money in the bank is the standard, not a bonus, and that every founder deserves clarity around their numbers. Each week, you'll get real financial strategy you can actually use and honest conversations with founders and industry experts about what it really takes to build a business that lasts. Today, I'm joined by Terry Sidhu, a partner at AP Capital. Terry brings 30 years of experience across real estate, private lending, property management, and a long-standing notary practice. In this conversation, we break down what business ownership actually looks like across multiple income streams, how cash flow drives decisions, what it takes to manage teams and operations at scale, and how strategy changes when you're running more than one business at a time. We also talk about working with a spouse in business, how relationships show up in opportunity, and what it really looks like when everything runs through one financial system. So let's get into the conversation. Terry, could you share how you went from being a notary for over 20 years to getting to real estate investing?
Yeah, so I actually at the age of 19 became a realtor. So I was a residential realtor for many, many years.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was right out of high school. I was 19 actually when I became a realtor, and then while I was doing that, I tried my arm in lending as well. I started as a TD mortgage specialist for a very small amount of time. I was not good at that. But so first I sold real estate, then I mortgaged it. I've always been a real estate guy. And then while I was doing kind of real estate slash mortgages, somebody said, "Hey, you gotta, act for this stuff. Why don't you look into this notary program?" So at the time, UBC actually had a program for BC notaries. I applied, and my second try, I got in, and I practiced. I had a practice for 19 or 20 years in Abbotsford, and predominantly did residential real estate, did some developments for some developers, and really enjoyed my journey, just partly because I think when people say, "Give me a summary of yourself," I said, it's a merger of two things. I love people. I'm a people person. And the second thing I love is real estate. And I think it's only because I started so young. I was 19, then I was a TD guy, then I got into the notary business. So through the notary profession, I met a lot of developers. I met a lot of high net worth investors. And I also met a couple of the co-founders of AP Capital. And
Oh wow.
yeah, and they were my clients. They became my top clients. I was doing legal work for them. And as I was exiting the notary program, I became a partner at AP. So it's myself and two other partners. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
How was it building a notary practice from scratch? I know a lot of people have social media, these different kind of things going on right now, but back in the day it was a lot of word of mouth, reaching out to people, meeting for coffee, doing the phone calls. What was that like? Because you have been someone I've admired. You built the relationships, you know everything about all your clients, everyone you connect with, because you can tell how big you are on relationships.
Yeah, and I think there's three components to that. I think if I think high level, one is back then social media wasn't that big, around 04, 05, 2004,
Yeah.
05, when I was just starting the notary firm. And at the time is basically old school networking, shaking a lot of hands. And what I started doing that really started getting a lot of traction and clients and referral sources was I'd go to the banks and credit unions and real estate offices and actually just start presenting on topics that they wanted. So I wanted to be a valuable source to them. And I said,
Yeah.
if leads and business comes from me doing it, um, and so I did a lot of that to start building up the pipeline and the clients and the referrals. So that's one component. The second is I think you have to have an inside out approach to people and clientele. I always have always thought of everything as kind of a troubleshooting, whether you're running a successful accounting firm like yourself, whether it's engineering firm or notary firm, and now AP Capital. I think you always got to do what's best for the client, and you have to. I always think of life like I try to hear their story,
Yeah.
and I think you can guide and coach people better once you know what their actual want is. I think
That's so
simply
true.
selling that service alone isn't enough. I think you really got to know, is this actually best for this client or not? So that's the second component. And then the third, I think that really, and at AP, we're doing this now. I've done it in my other two businesses too, was before I got involved in AP, is you really got to find good people, trusted people around you to live up to those same moral standards and values that you built by getting out and getting the business. Because I feel like there's no point getting the business if you can't deliver.
That is so true. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of times people are just running around doing the networking, the connecting, they get the clients, and then they just don't deliver on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
What has it been like managing cash flow? Like the real estate market has changed so much over the years. You ran like a notary firm, you've done like investing. So did you have like a good money mindset from like the beginning? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I think one of the approaches I took is when I was dealing with a lot of the consulting as a notary firm and dealing with people, I think learning is a big component of success. I think it's the biggest component of success. So what I often found is when I was consulting with people over the years, and I'm doing it now at AP Capital as well, is you not only are advising clients and dealing with people all day, but you also learn a lot what not to do. So
Yeah.
I feel like my strength came from sitting in my boardroom, kind of looking at some troubleshooting and dealing with issues, try to do the best I can, but also kind of going, okay, don't do that. And because if there's there's the rationale of the common denominator, where you'd see the same people in trouble or the same people that did the same thing in trouble, you're like, okay, so you kind of start putting two and two together, saying, so that's the general answer. But I think in real estate, one of the things I've always said to my peers, my realtors, mortgage brokers, everybody that's like some developers I know really, really well, is cash flow. I think a lot of people, when they get into land banking or all this or all, I think cash flow was the key to people that made it and continue to make it versus people that don't.
Yeah, for sure. And there was something you had said last time we spoke about like the timing matters and like how much time it took. Because a lot of times people get into real estate, they're like, I bought it for this, I sold it for this, I'm profitable. But then they don't factor in like the mortgage payments over the years, the
Mhm.
property taxes, the repairs, maintenance, all those kind of things.
Or even like development's a current example, like real estate, we all know what it's done the last 4 years hasn't been so perfect in BC, even
Yeah.
other parts of Canada as well. And I think people have come to me saying, "Oh man, I did a development in, I'll pick a place, I don't know, Abbotsford or something like that, and I made 20% return." And then I always say, in the absence of you can't talk about money in the absence of time, is my kind of the saying I always say, because I said if you make 20% profit in a 5 year period, you only really
Yeah.
made 4% a year.
So true.
So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I meant by that. But because people generally be like, "Oh, I made this much money," and then I'm like, "Well, in how long?" Without the how long, it doesn't make any sense. But if you make 20% in a year, now you're crying. I mean, that's a different ball game than making in 5 years, right? So,
Yeah, that's so true.
yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to sell your notary firm?
Ooh, no, no. I thought I was gonna be a lifer. I think what happens is, I am, well, I feel like learning is a big, big component of my life, and I want to continue to learn and grow. So I felt like after 19 years of doing it, and I think that learning curve was starting to flatten out,
Yeah.
and that's what kind of made me go, you know what? And then obviously this opportunity, AP Capital came up, a couple other opportunities kind of came up, and I said, you know what, maybe now's the time to move on because I just want every so often you want to jog yourself in life and be like, you know what, can I continue to learn at a high level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at one point, like your wife was working with you as well.
Correct. She was doing estate planning, so we never. I was more of a real estate guy, so I was always doing the real estate land title conveyancing stuff, and then she was a teacher for many many years. Actually, still has her teaching certificate. So she took the course and became an estate planning person at our firm, and she did fairly well.
Wow. And what was it like working together?
Oh, that's a good question. I hope she's not listening. No, I'm just kidding. The reason why she did more estate planning is A, she liked it, and B, I think if we both worked on the same, like she did estate planning and I did real estate, I
Yeah,
think if we both worked in the same little division of the firm, I don't think it would work that well.
that makes sense.
Only because we both work differently. She's way more organized. She'll plan out like 2 weeks before, and I'm more like, okay, give me the notes. Let me figure it out on the fly, right? So, and there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong. It's just different perspectives and angles.
That totally makes sense. And like from a numbers perspective, like have you always been organized with like the books, the finances, the accounting, taxes? Because I know a lot of times people have the goal of exiting and selling, but their books don't make sense. They're running their personal expenses through the business. So even though you didn't know you wanted to sell, was that really a big priority for you?
Yes, that's a very good. I like that question a lot. I think a lot of people don't put as much value. Like, I think that's a great question by you being in the field that you're in and the people that you help.
Yeah.
Because to me, the more organized you are on the accounting, taxes, everything on a ongoing basis, you can focus more on the actual business and actually make way more money. And what I mean by that is I'm big on systems and processes. So I'd always had a bookkeeper. I had a weekly meeting with my bookkeeper. I always, even if it was only 30 minutes a week,
Yeah.
because it kept me focused on the things I'm good at and I delegated things I'm not good at. So I think selling the notary firm, I don't think I was organized on the taxes and everything else just because I was going to sell it. I think it was part of ongoing growth. And you also have a good second part of that is you also have a good snapshot of where you're at. Uh, Meaning if you do it as you go, you have a clear indication as to where you are, where you're going, shareholder loans, where am I investing next? Is this so I think it's very important for any business, small or big.
Makes sense. And like from like running your notary practice, you had like a lot of staff. And I know a lot of people struggle with like hiring, firing, cash flow when it comes to that. So do you have any tips or anything that worked well for you while you're going through the hiring
Yeah,
process?
100%. I think my analogy there, like my staff, I think I had probably two-thirds of my staff were with me a decade or longer, which
Wow.
uh is amazing in itself. But I think part of it, and I might I think wages and salaries and stuff need to be fair. But in my years of running businesses, I don't think that was a be all and end all for my employees. They everybody in the end want a good leader. They want to be empowered. They want to be a part of something big, and it takes time to build that. So you as a leader, you have to enable and get skills out of the employees. But the myth is, you know what, let's pay top dollar, get the top staff. I think it
Yeah.
works the opposite. And that's what's built some teams over the years for me that have done phenomenally well.
And you did like the whole interview process, you were doing the training and everything as well, or did you have someone for HR?
So I did the interview, and then I had I do two interviews. First one was always myself. Second one, I'd actually bring in a couple of my managers with me, and then the third thing I would do is the training part. I wasn't that big on it because I'm not that technically did it, but I
Yeah.
would I would delegate that to my other staff that were already there.
And did you manage like the return on investment on your staff too? Because a lot of times, like people are like, I just need to hire, I can't handle this. And then they end up paying the other person so much where they're not paying themselves anymore, or they end up in like a loss position.
100%. That's something that's that ongoing, and that goes back to that first one of the first questions you asked me about. taxes and staying on top of all that, and the snapshot of cleaning your financial books, because I think it gives you, you can be very dynamic. You're like, okay, this is not working. If I delegate this task to too many people, my profit's
Yeah.
gone. Because especially in certain businesses where the actual profit per piece or profit per transaction isn't that high, uh,
Yeah.
your profit goes away pretty quick. So one of the things that I tried to do is I would get my staff to about 100, 110% um, workload or efficiency, and then go and expand. Whereas the other theory, and again, this has just come from books and growing over the years and learning, is no, no, always keep them around 75, 80, and keep that didn't work well with me. So what I kind of just would find a niche and then plug it in that way. And one more thing to add to that, actually. And the other thing I would do, Cindy, is I would actually create a lot of hybrid roles, because sometimes what would happen is one thing in itself wouldn't be profitable if you give it to somebody, but if you made it
Yeah.
hybrid, you can kind of switch it back and forth as the need arises within the office.
That's so true. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And with like you having your real estate investments, like the notary, depending on the real estate market, what's going on, with having like unstable monthly cash flow coming in, did you set up like emergency savings and like all those kind of different things to make sure that you could cover expenses while the market was all over the place?
Yeah, and in the notary field that I ran, I was like, we had our busy months, and the busy season was kind of like April to October, and I knew November to February would be slower, so I,
Yeah,
you leave more retained earnings in your account. You'd also slim down some expenses as best you could. There's some variable expenses that you can play around with sometimes, whereas
yeah,
the fixed expenses are a year out. There's nothing you can do about them. So there's two or three little tactics like that where you'd either and sometimes I'd even actually go to my staff saying, hey, like if your senior staff has some vacation left, I'm like, hey, the winter months is where you want to take them. You can take 2 weeks off right now. Whereas in
yeah.
the summertime, I'd say, hey, listen, I need you guys all in the office. But, and so there's two or three little stuff, things like that that would make it easier.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
And with like real estate, like did you feel like it was easy to invest like a large amount upfront with having savings? Or like how did that work? Because like you're running two different businesses at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's good. I feel like real estate investing is one of the things that's very important is learning how to leverage. And
Yeah,
of course, AP Capital fits into it. We're an alternate lender, but also outside of AP Capital, people that invest in real estate, if they know how to leverage through banks and credit unions and actually get ahead, you have to do an inside out approach on it a little bit as to, especially when you're running a business. Like if people have shareholder, like you work with a lot of staff, you've referred me, shareholder loans, retained earnings, are you averaging? So you have to know how banks and credit unions look at that so you can actually clean your books to that level and say, okay, I want to go buy some real estate with this thing and buy two or three properties and do what I need to do.
that. And you like you even invested in like I think it was rental management as well.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things when I was 19 years old, I joined a company called Century 21 Ace Agencies, and about 12 years ago, the opportunity came up where the owners were still the same, but they're looking to get out. I had really no interest in running a real estate brokerage, but much to my wife's chagrin, I ended up purchasing it, and
Yeah.
not from real estate brokerage, but more to get into. They had a division, a property management division, and I wanted to, so yeah, I took that on 12 years ago, ran that. We built it from, I brought on a partner about 5 years ago into that, but we took it from about 100 and something doors to about almost 800 properties.
Wow.
And yeah, so yeah, and that was at the same time as running a notary business at the time.
How do you like manage your time with like having a family, doing all these investment projects?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I truly think balance is the key. I think I wouldn't be able to do any of these two or three things. Like now, AP Capital, I has been amazing, awesome partners. We have great staff. You've worked with us. Your clients have worked with us. And I think if I wasn't balanced at home, physically even my kids, my wife, everything at home, it lets you grow. exponentially because you have your bases covered. But part of the day to day, the key there is, and it's easier said than done, but I think one of the things that I really, really caught on to, and it's helped me immensely, and I talk about it a lot, is when you find the right people and you trust them, uh, growth just happens exponentially and over a long period of time.
That makes sense. How do you find like the right type of people?
I think there's only two ways to do it. You either what worked for me is empowering the right people. So I brought in people that were very junior, didn't have much experience at all, but they bought onto this program. I would say to them every 6 months, whenever I did have a chance to sit down with them, say, hey, listen, you trust me and I'll trust you, but it's a
Yeah,
long-term game and I'll take care of you. Just trust me, I'll take care of you, but you gotta stick around. So it's one of those, because you won't really know, so it takes time. So one is empowering people, and the other is you can bring in staff as well, but you have to make sure that they jive with your how you're going to run the firm.
that totally makes sense. And did you find people just like networking or like LinkedIn online?
Yeah, my ideal always was through friends and family. I would actually like talk to my existing staff, even though we're bursting at the seams. They were so busy doing
Yeah,
overtime or whatever else. I said, girls, just give me like 1 or 2 months. Like I'm working on something. I'm working on something because I simply
yeah,
didn't want to just put out an ad and hire.
right.
Like I think friends and family and referral sources through like churches and temples and friends, cousins. Oh, I know my cousin, she works there. And uh, that's my ideal because then the chance of that person sticking it out with you longer and staying with you longer, a part of your organization is way higher than not.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Are you big on like personal development?
Yeah, I used to. One of the things that I always said is if anybody wanted to do a course to better themselves or any kind of training, I think the Notary Society at the time had online webinars. I always promoted it. Like I said, to me, learning is the biggest component to growth.
How about yourself? Like, did you take like any marketing courses or was it just a matter of like trial and error for you
Yeah.
with all the things you've done?
No, I took I think I took a lot of courses and I never really missed a conference and maybe a couple in the 20 years that I was a notary, I never missed a single conference because learning is so big to me. Because I think I started like kind of hustling in the real estate market when I was like 19. I think
Yeah,
marketing just naturally kind of came to me. I just knew how to talk to people and get in front of people and I didn't really take many courses in that. I think
yeah,
early on in my career, I did get I read a lot of books on motivation and stuff and how to stay motivated because motivation comes and goes. So you have to
yeah.
you have to keep it consistent.
That is so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone that's like either just starting up or they felt like they've just been using social media, but they've realized that they actually need to go out and meet people and like build actual human connections?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I just think I think people see whether it's social media or technology or even chat GPT now and AI and
Yeah,
everything people keep talking about. I think it's good to use, but I also feel they're tools. You need it's good to use tools because it'll expedite your process, but I think
yeah,
people get away from the basics more and more. I think the basics still got to be there. That's one thing I keep saying to the circa 25 to 35 year olds that come to me for advice or anything. I said, listen, these are all tools, but don't rely on them solely. So the old school networking, like getting out there, shake hands, go in front of people, you'd be shocked at how many people actually still love the human element. And I think one of the things I find is a lot of people hide behind their laptop and cell phones a lot. They'll always
yeah,
message people instead of jump on a phone. I'm old school. I just text and call people. I'm like, hey, what's up? And
yeah.
the energy is different. People just kind of go, whoa, like it's crazy. And I think a lot of people have gotten away from the basics.
Yeah, and I feel like like especially like after COVID, I feel like a lot of that human connection has really
Yes,
changed.
yes. And I think that's key. I think if people, the more I see people doing it, the more you'd be shocked at how much is linked to the success in my eyes.
Yeah. Do you ever find like people are cold DMing you on LinkedIn or sending you messages and you get on a call with them and it's just more surface level, like refer clients to me, I'll refer them to you,
Totally.
10% fee, whatever.
Totally. Like, especially one of the only other real estate, or sorry, social platforms I'm on is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I'll get a lot of people just saying, "Hey, call me. I can raise capital for you for AP Capital, or I can do this and this and
Yeah.
this." So I've opted just to, unless and it's the same thing as hiring. Go back full circle on the
Yeah.
staffing part that you said. Unless it's through some sort of referral source or somebody said, "Hey, Cindy referred you or so and so referred you." Let's. I often won't deal with them because the hit ratio is low, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question. How do you filter out who's worth talking to and not?
Yeah, I think with time it kind of like I think a lot of successful people like I have a couple of good business partners at AP here. They have good gut feels too, and intuition and gut feel kind of kicks in. You're like, if somebody's always like, "Hey, I'll help you, you help me," and they start talking like that, I'll give you an example. Like one of the things you said is goals and ambitions, motivation we were talking about earlier. If I say to somebody, "Hey, what's your goal this year?" Some young guy, like say 25-year-old, 30-year-old, and
Yeah.
they go, "Oh, I want to make $400,000 this year." Or they just talk about, "I want this car, I want this Porsche, or I want this Mercedes, or I want this." To me, and this is, I'm totally stereotyping, but to me,
Yeah.
my gut feel is this person won't link the two together because his success, that person's success is linked to some sort of monetary value. Where,
That's so true.
I'll read people like that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, but I think it's a lot of it's intuitive. After you've done business for so long, you kind of start getting, okay, this guy's not gonna be doing much.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What are your thoughts on like managing money? Because you'll often see like lottery winners, athletes, they make like a large sum of money, and like the average person says, if I had this much, like I'd be good. But the reality is, I don't know if it's mindset or what it is, like people just blow through it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I actually had this very conversation with a relative a week or two ago. I feel like uh, luxury and lifestyle are the two biggest uh, poison poison pills you can get into because um, often like I'll hear somebody even well, I won't mention any, but even like let's say somebody making 10,000 a month, they'll say, "Oh," they'll go spend eight that month, going, "You know what? I make 10,000 a month," but then they forget about taxes and all that stuff, and even your overhead and expenses, day to day living. So often, what I find is lifestyle is a big killer. Whether it's like you talked about athletes, I actually give that example to many people too. So
Yeah.
it's good that you started with that example because athletes, even there's a lot of actors out there that make lots of money, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and the next thing you know, you read an article years later, like this guy's broke. You're like, oh man.
Yeah, like Mike Tyson.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many of them, and I read about them all the time, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um, I think they get into the luxury lifestyle, and it's a dangerous game because that one, it's only a one way street. You start going
Yeah.
down that luxury path, it's very hard to come back. So you better have sustained cash flow. And it goes back to the very one of the very first things we talked about earlier is it's
Yeah.
all about sustained cash flow.
What are your thoughts on like financial literacy? Because you often hear like we didn't learn in school, our parents only knew so much, and people play that kind of like victim kind of mindset.
No, 100%. I think for well, my personal opinion, I think in at least in high school they should be doing at least like
Yeah.
finance 101 and teach people the basics. Like kids should know like, you know, here's a mortgage payment, here's how rent works, here's how this works. And I think there should be something offered in high school.
Yeah.
Um, just because a lot of people don't know. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is if that's not being done, because you don't want to throw it onto the education system. I always say, like, if things aren't being done in your life, don't throw it onto somebody else. Like, oh, the government's not doing anything in high school. I think the next responsibility falls with the parents. I think a lot of parents I know that are well versed, or they want their kids to grow up in this world where they kind of know a lot more about financial literacy. They actually take the bull by the horn and at dinner would be like, okay, so tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. And they infiltrate it into their day-to-day family life.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of like the South Asian community, like all we know from investing perspectives, real estate. Like for example, for myself, like that's all I grew up in, and it wasn't until I started my business, talking to different people, like learning so much. It was like there's this like whole different world of like private lending, buying right rental investment properties, stock market, all these kind of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. And I think the key thing with even parenting, like you like I like you brought up the financial literacy part with kids because you also got to create the interest. If you create the interest, they'll want to learn more about it. Like you now with your business, you're like, oh, it's awesome because I now you're interested because you know a bit more about it, right? But yeah, no, it's I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And even like on the CFO side, I feel like it's so common, regardless of how much someone is making. Like, I have clients that are making 100K months, but they have nothing to show for it. They can barely pay their taxes, property taxes, like whatever it is.
Or even one of the other things, Cindy, like I was in real estate at the age of 19, 20. One thing I saw a lot of realtors do, even high flying realtors that made a lot of money back then, they
Yeah,
wouldn't put money aside that they collected
yeah,
for GST or for taxes or anything else. So a year later, they get a big CRA bill or a GST bill, or their accountant would file everything, and then
yeah,
where am I supposed to get this from? And like simple things like GST even.
right. Yeah.
So I think those kind of things are very important to do as you go.
Yeah, no, for sure. Even for myself, like as soon as a client pays me, I'm putting that 5% into a separate account. And like even my dad too, I have to remind him like that money is not yours, it's CRA's,
Yes.
like put it away.
And even cash flow management in the job you
Yeah,
do with your clients, which are thanks to you, some of our mutual clients at AP and your clients, but stuff like installments.
right.
If you know you're having a good year, if you start sending in installments, it'll just be a smoother cash flow proposition for a year versus,
Yeah.
getting a big bill at the end of it and you're like, oh my goodness, where'd my money go?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think just like understanding how to utilize like your tax-free savings account, the home savings account, RSP
Yeah.
accounts.
Yeah. All it all comes in handy. And I think there's a couple 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids that I was talking to the other day and they're like, oh my goodness. And they're yeah, the earlier you start, the better you do. And I think part of my blessing has been I tripped into this field and I just kept learning and haven't stopped since the age of 19.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any like last minute tips or like advice? I feel like we covered so much today.
I think three things I'll end with. One is always invest in something you know, not just general. Second
Yeah.
is take advantage of TFSAs and all these little mechanisms that are built into the system because that's kind of how you get ahead. And third is kind of a hybrid between what you said about financial literacy and cash flow, but stay cash flow positive and invest wisely, and you'd be shocked if you stay slow and steady. You'd be shocked at how far it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Terry.
Okay.
What's the best way for our audience to connect with you or even learn more about investing with AP
Yeah,
Capital?
feel free to reach out. My email is terry@apcapital.ca. We can send you products and information. We can put you on our little mailing list, even if you don't have any money to invest now. You want to know more about it, we can put you on this monthly newsletter we send out called Fun Facts. And yeah, looking forward to answering anybody's questions
Thank you
and
so
sending
much,
you
Terry. I'll
info.
share all your details in the show notes.
Thank you.
If you're a founder who wants real strategy, not noise, and you want someone in your corner helping you build a business that feels aligned, is profitable, and actually supports your life, you can apply for CFO on Call. This is my one-on-one financial partnership for established founders, typically making between $500K to $2 million, who want clarity, who want structure and confidence with their numbers. The link is in the show notes so you can schedule a profit strategy call, or you can DM me CFO on Instagram at @CindyKamar and I'll send over all the details.